Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever noticed that sometimes trying to do something, even something good, it can actually feel worse than doing nothing at all?
Hmm.
Like you put in the effort, but it just seems to backfire, or you end up more frustrated.
Absolutely. It feels totally counterintuitive, doesn't it? We usually think, well, any effort must be better than laziness.
Exactly. Shouldn't striving always be better? But this ancient wisdom we're looking at today really flips that idea on its head.
It does. It suggests the quality and, maybe more importantly, the intention behind the effort are, well, everything.
And that's really the core of this deep dive. We're looking at a fascinating story from the Dhammapada commentary. It's called the Dubbacabhikkhuvatthu.
Which translates roughly to the story of the difficult-to-admonish monk.
Yeah.
A bit of a mouthful, but quite descriptive.
It is, and our sources, they give us the original Pali verses, plus translations, explanations, lots to work with.
It lets us see the layers in this incident involving some monks and the Buddha himself.
So our mission today is to really get into this story, understand the Buddha's teaching in these verses, which is incredibly practical, actually, and see how relevant it still is for you today.
Whether that's, a spiritual path, tackling a project, just trying to improve somehow.
Right. We want to understand the danger of effort that's done, well, badly or half-heartedly, and what the better way looks like.
Okay, so let's set the scene. This all happened at the Jetavana Monastery.
A place the Buddha often stayed, right?
That's right. So it kicks off pretty innocently. There's this monk who the source says wasn't acting deliberately. The Pali is asanyuka.
Okay, so not on purpose.
Not on purpose. He accidentally cut some grass. Ekatichintitva.
Simple mistake. Could happen to anyone, you'd think.
You would. But what's really telling is his reaction. He feels doubt or maybe regret kukuchipana.
Ah, so he's bothered by it, even though it was an accident.
Exactly. It shows he's actually quite conscientious, concerned about his monastic vows, even the seemingly small things.
He's taking his practice seriously, then.
Seems so. So he goes to another monk, and he's upfront about it. Atana katafava, arahantship. He tells him what he did.
And asks.
And asks, basically, okay, what's the deal with cutting grass? What's the consequence? He's looking for guidance.
Trying to do the right thing after the mistake. Makes sense.
But this is where the whole thing turns. The second monk's response is just dismissive.
Oh, how so?
He basically says, nothing really happens because of cutting grass. The Pali is naeta kinchihoti.
So, don't worry about it. Relax.
Yeah, pretty much. He tells the first monk, just confess it and you'll be fine.
Okay. But there's more, isn't there?
There is, and this is the crucial part. His actions completely contradict his casual advice. The source says he himself then pulls up grass.
Wait, the second monk does?
Yes,
Yeah.
and not accidentally. Deliberately, with both hands.
Yeah.
Saibi ubohi hatei titalunchis.
Wow, okay. So, the first monk accidentally cuts grass, feels bad. The second monk says, don't worry, then deliberately pulls up grass himself.
Right in front of him.
What's that about? Why would he do that? Is he trying to prove a point?
It really seems like he's trying to show the first monk, see, it's no big deal. You're worrying over nothing. But in doing so...
He's kind of trivializing the whole thing, maybe even the rules themselves.
Exactly. It shows a real lack of respect, maybe, for the spirit of the training. A kind of carelessness where care was needed.
And I assume someone noticed this exchange.
Oh, yes. The other monks saw it all and reported the whole incident to the Buddha.
And what was the Buddha's take on it? Was it just a minor issue?
Not at all. The sources say he strongly criticized Vigurahitva, the second monk. And not just briefly, but in many ways, Anakaparayena.
So the Buddha saw this as a serious problem, not the grass cutting itself maybe, but the attitude.
Precisely. The attitude, the dismissiveness, the carelessness, it pointed to a deeper issue. And this led him to deliver a really important teaching through these verses, these gatha.
Right. So he uses this incident to teach something much broader. Let's get into those verses. What's the first one?
The first one uses this really vivid analogy. It goes, Kuso yatha dugahito hatabavanakondati samanya duparamatha nirayupakatati.
Kusa grass. I've heard that's really sharp stuff.
It is, described as having an edge like a sharp palm leaf. The image is powerful. Just like kusa grass, if you grab it badly, poorly grasped dugahito, what happens?
You're right.
It cuts your hand. The Pali Indakantati even implies it slits or splits it faleti. It's quite graphic.
Ouch. Okay, so how does that relate to the monk?
Well, the verse draws a direct parallel. Similarly, the practice of a renunciant, the spiritual life samanyane, if it's poorly grasped or poorly handled, duparamatat,
It hurts you.
it drags you towards hell, towards suffering narayapagatati. It leads to a negative outcome.
So the core idea is that if you approach your path spiritual or otherwise, I guess, carelessly, it doesn't just not work. It actually harms you.
Exactly, it's self-destructive. And the commentary links that poorly handled specifically to things like having broken precepts or virtues. It's about a lack of integrity in how you're doing it.
Okay, that's powerful warning. What about the next verse? Does it elaborate?
It does. The second verse describes the kinds of practice brahmacharya that are not greatly fruitful. Natahotimaha.
Not greatly fruitful.
Okay. It lists three things. Yakinyetsi, sitilakama, sekilehanyakayavate, sakasara brahmacharya, natahotimafalo.
Right, let's break those down. First one, sitila kamma.
That means lax or slack action. The commentary says it's action done by holding loosely or doing it lazily.
Like the second monk pulling up the grass without real care or commitment.
Exactly like that. It's half-hearted effort, going through the motions maybe, but without real diligence or sincerity.
Got it. Okay, the second one.
Sekilihanyaka yavata. That's a defiled vow or practice.
Defiled. How so?
Well, the commentary gives an example like hanging out in inappropriate places, like associating with prostitutes.
Yeah.
But the principle is broader. It's about engaging in things that muddy your intentions or compromise your commitments.
So saying one thing but doing another, bringing impurity into your practice.
Exactly. It's like trying to clean something with dirty water. It just doesn't work. And the third one is sakasara brahmacharya,
Which means?
a suspicious or doubtful religious life.
Suspicious, like other people are suspicious of you.
It's more about inner doubt and suspicion, often stemming from your own laxness or defiled actions. You lack confidence because you know you're not practicing purely.
Ah, I see. So you become suspicious of others because you're projecting your own internal state.
Precisely. The commentary gives this example. You see other monks gathered, and you immediately think, oh no, they know what I did, they're going to kick me out. It's that kind of inner turmoil and lack of firm grounding.
Wow, that sounds like a miserable way to live, actually. Constantly looking over your shoulder, metaphorically speaking.
It really does. And the verse concludes that any of these, the lax action, the defiled practice, the doubtful life, mean your practice is not greatly fruitful.
Not just for you, right? The commentary mentions something else.
Right. It says it's not greatly fruitful for the person doing it, and it's not greatly fruitful even for those who support that person, like people giving donations.
Because the practice itself just lacks potency.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the power to bring about real transformation or benefit. It makes perfect sense, really. If you're not all in, if your motives are mixed, if you're full of doubt, the results will be weak.
It's like trying to, I don't know, build a house on sand with broken tools.
That's a great way to put it,
Yeah.
which leads right into the third verse, which is the instruction, the what to do about it.
Okay, what's the advice?
It's very direct. Kairaste kairatena, talamane parakame.
Which means?
If one is going to do an action, one should do it. Simple as that. Yakamokariya daikarotiva.
No half measures. If you're doing it, do it.
Right. And how should you do it? One should strive resolutely at it. Dhammapada barkame.
Resolutely, firmly.
Yes. The commentary explains this means making it firm. Therakatametakatva, having a stable undertaking. Havaitasamidana.
That sounds like the exact opposite of the slack action from before. This is about commitment, stability, really putting your weight behind it.
Precisely. Full commitment, firm resolve. And the final verse drives home the danger of not doing this. It warns about the slack wanderer's life.
Okay, what's the verse?
Sitilo hiparipajo biyo akiratiraja.
Sitilo paripacho. That's the slack practice again.
Yes, the practice done with slack holding or one that's become broken, lacking that firmness.
And the consequence, biyo akirata raja, what does that mean?
It means it scatters more dust. Raja here means dust, symbolizing defilements like lust, anger, delusion.
More dust. So it doesn't just fail to clean things up.
Right. The commentary clarifies, such slack practice cannot remove the existing dust within. It's ineffective at purification.
Okay, bad enough. But scatters more.
Yes. It actually adds to the defilements. It scatters more dust on top of that person.
Whoa. Okay, hold on. So putting in sloppy, half-hearted, or impure effort isn't just neutral, like doing nothing. It actually makes things worse internally.
That's the really stark warning here.
Yeah.
It's counterproductive. It reinforces the negative patterns, the confusion, the inner dust.
Like trying to sweep the floor, but your broom is falling apart and just kicking up more dirt everywhere.
Exactly. That captures it perfectly. It actively increases the problem it's supposed to solve. Think about the second monk again.
Right.
His casual act wasn't just neutral, it revealed and probably reinforced a harmful attitude.
This is really important. So let's bring this right back to you listening now. Forget the monks in the pali for a moment. How does this play out in our lives today?
Well, think about trying to learn something new, maybe an instrument or a language.
Okay.
If you practice, like sporadically while scrolling your phone, maybe with the secret agenda of just impressing someone, is that resolute effort?
No, that sounds pretty slack.
Right. And does it lead to deep learning? Or does it just reinforce habits of distraction and maybe build frustration because you're not really progressing? It arguably scatters more dust of impatience or superficiality.
Or think about a big goal, maybe at work or a personal project. If you approach it with half-hearted attempts, always putting it off.
Or maybe you are putting in effort, but your motivation is kind of iffy, like driven by ego or wanting to get back at someone.
Yeah. Does that effort build something solid and positive? Or does it just create more stress, maybe compromise your values, add that dust of negativity?
It even applies to trying to be a better person, you know? I'm not trying to be more patient, but only when it's easy.
Or trying to be honest, except for those convenient little white lies.
Exactly. That slack holding doesn't build patience or honesty. It actually reinforces the opposite. It adds more dust.
So understanding this teaching is really practical. It forces you to look at how you're doing things. Am I grabbing this kusagrass of my job, my relationship, my self-improvement with a firm, careful, sincere grip?
Or is it a slack grip? Are my intentions clear? Is my effort resolute? Because the outcome really depends on it.
It's not just about what you do, but how you do it.
Precisely. And the story does end on a hopeful note, showing the power of taking this to heart.
Right. What happened to the listeners?
The source says many people listening to the Buddha's discourse actually attain stages of awakening, like stream entry sotapada philadini. It shows the teaching itself is powerful when truly heard.
And what about the first monk? The one who made the mistake but felt bad?
Yes, Sopi Bhikkhu. The text says that by sticking to restraint, savarihatva, and cultivating insight later on, vipassana vachetva, he eventually attained arahantship.
The highest goal.
Indeed. It shows that an initial mistake isn't the defining factor. His sincerity, his willingness to seek guidance, and his later resolute effort led to liberation.
What a contrast to the warning about the slack practice leading towards suffering.
A perfect illustration of the two paths laid out in the verses.
So if we boil it all down, the main takeaway from this deep dive seems crystal clear. The quality of our effort, the sincerity of our intention, they aren't just nice extras. They're absolutely fundamental.
Yeah. Half-hearted, impure, doubt-filled effort isn't just weak tea, it's often actively unhelpful, counterproductive.
It adds to the mess instead of cleaning it up. Real progress, real change comes from that sincere, resolute, stable effort the Buddha talked about.
A firm grasp.
Right. Which leaves us, and you listening, with a really potent question to reflect on, building on all this.
Okay.
Look around at your own life, your work, your learning, your relationships, your inner practice. Where might you be holding things with that slack grasp? Where might the effort be lax, or the intention may be a bit muddy, or doubt creeping in?
And then ask yourself, what would change if you shifted? If you consciously decided to approach that one area with more resolve, more firmness, more sincerity, how might that change not just the external result, but your own inner state, your sense of integrity, your confidence, that feeling of actually clearing away the dust instead of just stirring it up?
Something definitely worth pondering.